Welcome back to Trans Deeper, a show where we take a deeper look at what people are saying in the trans conversation and whether their claims are valid or not. Today, I want to look at a worrying development, the trivialization of gender dysphoria. Specifically, in certain circles, basic compassion for those suffering from gender dysphoria is increasingly seen as woke, and inhumane treatment is therefore justified as non-woke and rational. Let me give you some examples. Treatment for gender dysphoria via medical transition is described as experimental, despite being the only proven effective treatment out there, and decades of evidence supporting its effectiveness. From there, such treatment, even in the context of consenting adults, is painted as questionable and possibly in violation of the do no harm principle. This standard is of course ridiculous if we apply it equally to all of medicine in general. All medical treatment carries potential harms. If this is the way do no harm is to be interpreted, then clinical medicine might as well not exist, and patients left to suffer despite the existence of highly effective treatments. Of course, nobody intends for this standard to apply to all of medicine. They only apply it to gender dysphoria because they are trivializing the suffering brought on by this condition. This cultural motivated bias is both unscientific and inhumane. Another example is the increasing normalization of gender-critical views in anti-woke circles, to the extent that gender-critical activists are given many opportunities to promote their views without the other side of the argument being equally presented. One thing gender-critical activists often argue is that using a trans person's preferred pronouns is giving in to some kind of ideology. I've argued elsewhere why this isn't the case, but as a supporter of free speech, I ultimately respect your right to say whatever you want. However, the important point is, the gender dysphoria side of the story is almost never presented as a rebuttal to the gender-critical argument. The argument is that using a trans person's preferred pronouns contributes to relieving gender dysphoria, and is therefore a decent thing to do. After hearing this argument, it is still up to you to do whatever you believe is right. But the argument must be available for consideration in the first place, and too often it isn't even on the table anymore in the anti-woke world. As I've been saying for a long time, the discourse around trans people has been dominated by everything from academic philosophy to politicized culture wars, with a focus on anything but gender dysphoria. This is totally unfair to trans people, who transition because they need to relieve their gender dysphoria in the first place. The distraction from this fact leads to less appetite for compassion towards trans people as fellow humans, and more polarization over trans issues as abstract philosophical concerns, as if they weren't affecting actual human beings. The current trivialization of gender dysphoria is the logical conclusion of all this. Therefore, it's time we talked a lot more about gender dysphoria. It needs to be at the center of the trans discourse once again. That's all for today. I'll be back next time to discuss another big idea. Remember, on this show, the personalities don't matter. It's the ideas that matter. Until next time, remember to resist conformity and stay positive. Our future depends on it.